So it turns out that shotguns actually suck for self-defense. Folks, this is Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist and addressing this controversial and often misunderstood topic of shotguns, how effective they are, what kind of ammunition works for home defense, self-defense. I was just watching that video about those two cops that got shot in a barricaded person shooting at them with a shotgun. He actually shot both officers with a shotgun in the face. And you know what happened? Nothing. The officers were able to respond, fight back, and actually stop this attacker. They had a bloody, messy face. One of them had an eye that's compromised or some loss of vision. But even getting shot with a shotgun in the face, in both cases, it failed to stop. Now, I don't even have to look exactly at what happened there. I already know what happened. There is a picture and it just proves my suspicions, which is that guy was using Birdshot. And that's the most controversial aspect of shotguns and how effective or not that they are. In terms of pretty much anything that you're shooting out of a 12 gauge, that maybe even rubber pellets, less than lethal ammunition. If it's at contact range, the amount of powder that you have in one of these things can be lethal. Now, just the possibility of it being lethal or not doesn't mean it's gonna be a good stopper. There's a video about an active shooter going into a library in a university. He shoots with a 12 gauge shotgun, double barrel, at a big girl. And I mean that she was tall and overweight. But he shoots at that girl at maybe 3 or 4 yards. She barely looks at him and she runs away. Now, we're talking about a girl that was large, a certain amount of fat in her body, and this simply lacked the penetration even at this very close range. So this is something you have to keep in mind. If you're telling me, no, I just live in this very small apartment, so this should be enough, well, I won't argue with that, especially with something like this. These are some of the bigger Birdshot. This is your turkey load, which is as high as Birdshot gets. But, even this, depending on where you live, this may not be worth the risk, right? You want to go with the safest thing. The safest thing for a shotgun, for home defense, for self-defense, it's going to be buckshot. You want to have those 00, 000 buck, 8, 9mm pellets. I mean, you could go with some of that 27 pellets, 22, but some of those smaller buckshot. But this is probably your safest bet. This is what most law enforcement, military use around the world for a good reason. It's something that's been used for a very long time, even in the Wild West, even in the Vietnam War, Second World War, buckshot is what you found being used. And of course, you can go with something ridiculously effective like these hexalate rounds. These expand and basically explode, sending shrapnel inside the target. This is super effective. But that's the beauty and the problem with a shotgun. It is so versatile that it leaves a lot of room for failure if you mess up. So you have maybe one of the most effective rounds you could shoot at anything in terms of small arms, which is this sucker right here. This will make a mess out of pretty much anything that it ends up hitting in a man-sized target. And you have one of the most ineffective, which is Birdshot in a shotgun. So exactly what is the truth regarding what range? I mean, even with 8, 9 Birdshot at contact range, it's going to be ripping out your hand if it's that's what you're shooting at. It's going to be making a mess of anything. But we just have to admit that Birdshot will lack the penetration that, according to the FBI, is the minimum required for an effective stopper, which is 12 inches of ballistic gelatin. Now, a 22 will penetrate that, and in fact, yes, a 22 to the face of a person, like the one that these cops ended up receiving those wounds to their face, it would have been more effective, a 22 long rifle, than that Birdshot. So here's where we start with these suppositions of no, but I live in an apartment, I live in a small home, I'm likely to shoot at 2, 3, 5 yards. Well, if that is 3, 5 yards and then all of a sudden it's 6, well, it probably won't be as effective as you're hoping it will. And then we have to add another layer to the problem, which is preparedness. For us, we want to have a certain amount of ammunition. But as soon as we see the price of stuff, we go like, yeah, give me a couple little boxes of buckshot and I'll take a case of that cheap crap birdshot that you have over there. It is kind of like okay, right? No, it's not. Don't stock up on crap that won't do what you're hoping to use it for if things go wrong. If what you have stored away for your worst case scenario is number 8, number 7, number 6, 9 birdshot, that just will not be effective. Now, you want to have that for a person that's going to be stuck in a doorway doing security and you don't trust that person to shoot past 10 yards? Well, yeah, definitely that's one of the things you could do because it won't be effective past those ranges. And then we have to consider chokes. Is that barrel choked or not? What kind of choke does it have? Most people that buy a shotgun for self-defense will have a cylinder choke, meaning it's not a narrowing of the barrel as it gets closer to the end of the barrel. So it won't be as effective. That same shot shell, birdshot, being shot in a full choke barrel will probably have twice the effective range, or at least it's going to be extending that effective range a lot more. It's going to be penetrating a lot more. It's going to be a lot more effective. Will that compensate for my poor choice of ammunition? No, it will not. It will not penetrate much more than that. It will penetrate maybe a little bit more. Maybe it's going to be enough to stop an attacker versus just peppering it and pissing it off. But you're just counting on something that is not adequate for the intended use, which is shooting birds, right? So guys, trying to not make the video too long. If you have a shotgun, great. You have a fine gun. I mean, as long as you bought an adequate shotgun, something like Mossberg 500, a good semi-automatic, shotguns are fantastic. But within that versatility that it has, it allows you to screw up. If you have something like my 357 Magnum, you buy 357 Magnum ammunition, yeah, whatever the hell you hit with that, you're not at risk of not having enough penetration. It will do its job. Now, when you have this freedom of choice here, you can mess things up, and people often do. Fortunately, in this case, it was one of the bad guys. Fortunately, in the case of that active shooter that shot that poor girl, again, yeah, it didn't work as intended. That same girl shot with this or this would not have been around after getting hit. This is just a lot more penetration and a lot more damage that's going to be doing. This will be gruesome. It will be, but 3, 4, 5 yards is going to be maybe a couple inches, 3 inches of penetration. Again, depending on the load, depending on the exact size of the pellets and barrels and so on. But with a little bit of luck, you will survive that wound, right? And it's going to be failing to stop you if you're in the receiving end. Just a little bit more information, just a little bit more things for you to consider, because you see this quite often. People that have ammunition that is not adequate for the use that they intend, or maybe they do have, like, yeah, give me a box. They buy a box of the more expensive stuff, right? 1, 2, 3 boxes. Now, if they ever need that for an extended period of time, they're going to be digging into that cheap crap trap shot that they have, or birdshot that they have. That was the cheapest thing they could find. Guys, that's going to be all for now. Remember that I talked quite a bit about this stuff in Survival Skills. I actually have explanations regarding all of this and why you want certain things more than others for self-defense. See you in our next video. Take care.